Hi, it's time for another verb of the day. Today's verb is glisten, and this verb was suggested by the viewer Artem. Artem, thank you so much for today's suggestion. Now let's take a moment and review some of the definitions or the ways that we can use this verb. The first way you might encounter the verb glisten can mean for some object or something to shine or glitter. And it might be a bit because the object or person even might be wet or sort of greasy, and the way the light is hitting that kind of wet or greasy surface area is causing that shining. Now, a second related way you might encounter the verb glisten means to be reflected with a sparkling and soft glow. Again, kind of similar here. The second definition doesn't have that wet or greasy meaning to it, but again, we kind of imagine sort of light hitting a particular object and causing either a sparkling or a shine to occur. For now, you should know that glisten is a regular verb. If you want to form the progressive of this verb, all you need to do is add ing, and that forms glistening. The past tense and the participle form of our verb can be made by adding ed. Now, the base verb, glisten, ends in a voiced n sound. This means when I add the ed ending, I'm just going to make a d sound, a duh. I'm not making an id sound where we have that extra syllable. Okay, so no extra syllable here. The past tense and the participle form of our verb should sound like this: glistened, glistened. Okay. Now, I do have one phrasal verb you might encounter, that is to glisten with. The meaning here is not really all that different. It is to shimmer or to twinkle with something. An example of this: her eyes glistened with tears as they drove away. Right? So we can kind of imagine the way the light is hitting that wet tear or tears as they start to come out of the corners of her eyes. Again, sort of hits the light, catches the light, and causes this shimmer or twinkle. Now we'll continue using our verb of the day, and we'll practice and review some verb tenses as we do that. Today I thought it would be good for us to review the past perfect and the present perfect progressive. Let's start with the past perfect. We use this verb tense to talk about completed actions. But what makes it a little different than just the simple past tense is with the past perfect, we're stressing that an action occurred before some other action or before a certain point in the past. You'll notice past perfect has two letter P's. That can help you remember that you'll need two parts to make your verb. This is a verb tense where we aren't going to have different forms based on our subject, so our pattern will stay the same here. We're going to start with a subject. We're going to use had, H-A-D, that's the past tense of have, and then we'll use that participle form of our verb. Let's take a look at an example sentence. The nearby mountains had glistened in the early morning sun all week, but now they were obscured by clouds and haze. So here, maybe we've got some snow-capped mountains, right? And that snow or wetness is causing the reflection or shimmer off the mountains earlier. And now that's contrasted with the fact we can't see it because it's cloudy or hazy. Okay. Now let's look at making a negative past perfect sentence. To do this, we start with our subject, we use had not, and then the participle form the verb. Here's another example. The muddy fields hadn't glistened in some time. So here, you might get a sort of a sense of glistening occurring as snow covers ground. But here, maybe the snow has melted, now it's muddy, and so we're not getting that same sort of beautiful shimmering sight. Now, let's take a look at an example of a yes or no question in the past perfect. To do this, start with had, Then you're going to have your subject and then the participle form of the verb. Here's another example. Had her eyes glistened with tears. Okay, maybe we're wanting to know if that occurred before some other action in the past. Now we'll move on and do a little verb tense practice with the present perfect progressive. In this verb tense, we're going to be talking about an action that started in the past and it continues into the present. It may even continue into the future. Many teachers and textbooks will also call this the present perfect continuous, and that is just fine. It means exactly the same thing. I use present perfect progressive, notice the 3 P's, because that can help my students remember we need 3 parts to make our verb. Now, this is a verb tense where we need to pay attention to our subject. If our subject is I, you, we, or they, I'll use have, the participle been, B-E-E-N, and then the ing form the verb. But if my subject is he, she, or it, I'll use has been, and then that ing form of the verb. Let's take a look at an example sentence. Lacquer furniture has been glistening across design markets this spring. Okay. Now, first thing I want to point out in this sentence, this is something that has come up a number of times with students. When you see that word furniture, it's natural for our mind to think of many different pieces, right? We could be thinking of chairs and desks and tables and couches, etc. But the noun furniture is singular. So that's why you're seeing has there. So that's like saying it. And this particular sentence is describing a particular style of furniture, and this idea that its material kind of makes light hit it and causes it to shimmer. Let's take a look now at a negative present perfect progressive sentence. To do this, again, we start with our subject. We'll use either have not been, and then the ing form of the verb, or has not been, and then the ing form of the verb. You might also encounter contractions, so have not can become haven't, has not can become hasn't. Here's another example sentence. This jewelry hasn't been glistening in years. Okay? Again, this idea of we're going back in time, continuing into the present, and maybe no one's going to do anything to cause it to glisten anytime soon. So it might continue into the future. Finally, let's talk about making a yes or no question in the present perfect progressive. To do this, you should start with either have or has. Whatever form matches your subject, that subject should come next, followed by the participle been, and then the ing form the verb. Here's one more example. Have the streets been glistening in the rain? Again, that kind of goes back to that first definition, so think making it look like it's shimmering or shining due to that wetness. Now we'll spend a moment looking at some words related to our verb glisten. And the first word we're going to talk about today is just the noun form of this word. The noun glisten has the exact same spelling and the exact same pronunciation as our verb. When we use this word as a noun, we're generally referring to sparkling light that is being reflected from something. An example of this. The building's new sign has a glisten of gold letters. Right? So you can kind of imagine the way the way the light is going to reflect off the gold lettering, causing that sparkling light. Now, another related word would be the adjective form here. So our adjective is glistening. It looks like our ing or progressive form of the verb. Again, same spelling, same pronunciation. When we use this word as an adjective, we're describing something that is shining with a sparkling light. So I took my first sentence and just kind of reworded it to have an adjective form here. So the new sign has glistening gold letters. So here, again, we're describing the letters. That's our noun. One last word for us today. It's the adverb glisteningly. So that ly suffix tells us we have an adverb. And remember, adverbs can either describe verbs, they could also be used to describe other adjectives. So here we're going to be describing something done in a way that causes that shining with sparkling light. One more example for us today. The cup was glisteningly empty, right? So empty is also an adjective, right? So that's why we're using the adverb form of the word. Thanks again to Artem, the aspiring writer and novelist here. I hope this verb is useful in your writing, and I thank you all for watching. I hope you have a great day.